Alright guys, we're going to do a little video here on tree selection. So kind of the trees I look for, how I deal with certain types of trees, things like this. So keep in mind that what you see here is in relation to what I'm looking for, 18 to 20 feet. All this is going to be filmed pretty close to the ground today, but just keep in mind, this is what I'm looking for. From the 18 to 20 foot range, I typically don't hunt higher, much higher than that at any time. So I figured what better tree to start with than my favorite type of tree. This is my favorite setup. I like to have the tree I'm hooked to and then a tree behind it. It gives me a backdrop, it gives me something to lean against, it gives me a place, typically I'll put my bow, I'll put my backpack, I'll put everything on this tree. I'll try to keep this tree as clean as possible, won't put anything on it hardly whatsoever. Now the size on this tree right here is probably one of the largest trees I'll hunt. That's pretty big for me. I typically don't like trees this big. This is, like I said, this is probably the bigger end of it. I will hunt some bigger than this if I have to, but typically I try to find trees this size or smaller. This tree right here is, I wouldn't say it's the smallest I've ever hunted from. I've hunted from some much smaller than this, but comfortably this is about the smallest. I can almost get my hands around it. So you can see I'm only a ½ inch short to get my hands all the way around this. So when I'm walking through the woods and I'm looking for a great, in a great spot, and I want to find a great tree, if I see something like this, I'm hunting it. Most of the time you run into this, the tree will have a common base, so it'll actually have two trees from the same base that will grow out. And you look up there 15, 20 feet, however far up there you need, and you'll see this. And this is just, for me, it's the greatest tree. I'll always hunt one of these trees if I can, just because if I'm sitting here, I can put my bow hanger here, it'll come out, bend over, my bow will actually be hanging over here, as compared to over here if I hook it on this tree. Backpack I can put low left side, so it's out of the way, I'm not going to hit it when I'm swinging through, but everything is right there where I need it. So this is why I like to pick this tree. So what we'll do is we'll walk through the woods, I'll find a couple other trees, and I'll tell you, why I like this tree, how I would hunt this tree, and things like that, so you can get an idea of tree selection and how to handle tree selection. Alright guys, here's a small dogwood tree that I found. It's leaning away from me slightly, so this is the way I typically like to hunt leaning trees. I like to have them leaning away from me. And the reason for this is, as I move around the tree, it's easier for me to slow down my body movement with the gravity because the tree's leaning away. I can slow my movement down. So I'll hunt the uphill side of it. Yeah, you feel like you're pressed against the tree a lot, but I hunt mostly with my knees on the tree anyway, so my knee gives me that separation from the tree, so I'm not worried about that as much. It's the movement around the tree that is the hardest part with the leaning tree. So for example, if a deer come in on the opposite side of this tree, I use my feet to slow my body movements down so I can get around this tree. And you can see, I went relatively slow, get to the point where I need to make a shot. Versus if I was set up on the downhill side of this tree and I needed to make a shot on the uphill side, I actually have to fight gravity to move my body around this tree. And there gets to a point, like right now, it's taking a lot for me to pull my body up the hill. So it's a lot easier to control your movements as you go down the hill than it is for you to try to pull your body up the hill to make a shot. So that's how I choose leaning trees. I like them leaning away from me, where my shot is typically on my left. So we'll take a look around and see what other trees we can find. Alright guys, now we're going to take a look at small trees. This is the smallest tree I would hunt. I have hunted from trees this size and I have killed deer from trees this size. But this is what makes the saddle style hunting so versatile, is you can hunt these tiny, tiny trees. This is one hand, eye level with where I've tied in. It's that big around. So if you're looking at that size, which is about the size of a 20-ounce soda bottle or so, where I'm tied in. Now you'll notice as I move, you can see this tree just sways with me, which that's okay if you keep that in mind while you're hunting it, because you got to worry about the treetop that's moving, hitting other trees. On a calm day, that'll key every deer into where you're sitting. But it gives you that ability to hunt where no one else can. A clear cut where trees are only this big. Say just a small standard pines, that aren't that old, but just old enough that you can hunt from them. You can hunt these tiny little trees and get away with it. Again, I'm only 150 pounds, so this tree this size is the smallest I would feel comfortable hunting, because I start getting any smaller and the tree starts really leaning once I get up there. So you got to keep that in account. So what I recommend is just finding the smallest size tree that you feel comfortable hunting from, you feel safe in, and that you can get away with moving in. And just keep that in your arsenal. It works great as a backup. Hey, I got to hunt this spot. There's not very many big trees. You can always use these little trees to your advantage. They don't offer much cover, but cover's not always the best thing. You can get high enough where the deer won't see you. You just need to be able to hunt those perfect spots with what you have given. Sometimes that's only small trees.